Good morning. It is 8:48 a.m. on Friday, December 21st, 2018. I'm Christiana Ellis, and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. Uh, so, today I have a special request because I'm trying to type as I talk, which is not how I ought to really do this. Um, as part of my Extra Life campaign, I offered as a reward tier for people donating that they could choose a topic for me to speak about in a 5 more minutes video. And so one of the donors did do that, and this was from Michelle Nichols, who says, I've been listening to talking about Survivor for a long time, and I'm interested in when you started watching Survivor and how you and Mike started a podcast about it. And I absolutely am happy to talk about that. Gosh, I'm just moving stuff around, changing the lighting. It's all terrible. Anyway, so talking about Survivor. Well, I watched the very first season of Survivor when it aired on TV. I was just like many other people. I was fascinated by the novelty of it, and I enjoyed it and watched the whole season. Actually, is that right? Now that I think about it. You know what? I think I didn't actually watch the whole first season. I have retroactively gleaned most of the first season, but I think what it was is that I heard about it, but didn't get a chance to watch it all on the first season. But I did watch all of the second season. I haven't thought about this in a little while. But yeah, and there was a brief moment there. It was like, oh, someone's going to call me on that. I better correct myself. Anyway. So yeah, it was the second season that I watched in its entirety. It was the first one for me. And then I think at the time, I felt like, well, now I've seen that. And I didn't actually continue to watch in that immediate time. But as the years continued, the show stuck around, and I kept hearing about, still going, and I don't know, maybe it would be interesting to see different people play the game. Maybe. Is it any different now? I don't know. But then they started promoting Survivor All-Stars, the very first All-Stars season, which was season 8, airing back in 2003. And the advertising for that was sufficient to get me back watching it again. And I watched that season, and seeing a different group of people, and that was a pretty good season. And seeing, even though it was an all-stars season, for me, it was mostly people that I hadn't seen before, because I hadn't been watching all of the seasons up until then. But I was just charmed by some of the people they had playing, and intrigued by the psychological elements of the competition. Because what I love about Survivor, and I haven't talked about this in a while, is not this element, like this idea that somehow it's supposed to be like about real survival. And you can understand why, when it was a brand new thing, people assumed that that's what it was supposed to be, and then found that it's not really like that. But what I love about it is, first of all, it's a game theory type competition thing where for much of the game you need to have allies to vote with you, to be a team, to be an alliance. But ultimately, only one person can win. And so it inevitably forces you to turn on people that you had allied with, or they will turn on you as an inevitability in the game. And that's interesting from a psychological perspective. And what the survival environment does is it puts people out of their comfort zone, right? Everybody is in an unfamiliar place, and they're having to go through hardships. It's not realistic survival in the way that some people wanted, But, they're not getting as much to eat as they normally would. They're having to sleep in a shelter that they've had to build. They're having to contend with bugs and storms and weather and each other in close quarters 24/7. And of course, we have to remember too, cameras everywhere. That's something that it's easy to sort of forget from this side of the screen. But all of that serves to put people under pressure. And that reveals, so it's basically what's appealing to me about the game of Survivor is that it is a game of psychological and social strategy played where the competitors are under pressure that makes those things difficult. And then there's, physical challenges too, which adds to that. And it's all just very interesting. And what I discovered watching it for a second time was something that I think people who are sports fans probably intuitively understand, which is to say, if you have a well-designed game, watching two different groups of playing it, two different completely different groups playing it is not equivalent. Different groups of people in different combinations play the game differently, and the game has different outcomes, and that makes it interesting. So I watched Survivor All-Stars, and I was a big fan. Now, in parallel to all this, Mike is my oldest friend. He and I went to kindergarten together, and then actually never shared the same school again after that 1 year. But we stayed friends throughout. We've been good friends for years and years and years. And even when I moved away, even when I went to school in Colorado, he went to school in Florida. And then after college, when I moved away from Colorado, and then he has had various moves over the years too, that we stayed in touch. We called each other fairly regularly just to talk. And one of the things that I started talking about was gushing about Survivor is awesome. It's really good. You should watch it. And so the very next season was Survivor Vanuatu, season 9. And he and I both watched it, and we talked about it in these regular calls. And we were both very enthusiastic about it. He found he really enjoyed it too. And we enjoyed talking about it with each other. Now, in a third parallel track, this was right around the time that podcasting was starting to be a thing. It was not quite, let's see, I think that it was Survivor Vanuatu and Survivor Palau were both seasons that I think we watched and talked about. But it wasn't until Survivor Guatemala, which premiered, oh no, wait, hang on, let me double check. Is this right? Again, this is, more than 10 years ago. I want to just make sure I'm saying it right. Yeah, so, okay. Survivor Guatemala premiered in September 2005. And that was right around the time, it was a little bit after I had started my own podcast, Christiana Talks About Stuff. And I realized that, hey, you know what? Survivor is something that would be fun to talk about, and I could have Mike on. And given that we are already having these calls where we talk about it, what if we just recorded it and made that the podcast? And so we started doing that. And so we started with that Survivor Guatemala season. It was season 11 and never stopped. So eventually I took and made, talking about Survivor its own separate feed rather than just being part of Christiana Talks About Stuff. And, but we just kept going because we enjoyed it. And, Mike and I have done other podcasts over the years, talking about movies, doing, watching 100 movies, which has been a very slow moving but very slowly progressing project to watch the AFI's top 100 movies. And we try to watch Oscar movies every year and everything. But in the meantime, chugging along as a consistent thing, talking about Survivor. And we just have not stopped enjoying it yet. There have been certainly seasons where we were having a hard time making the scheduling work, and we would have to skip a few, or and then do like 3 episodes in one go, or we didn't get to do our finale episode until like 2 weeks after the finale had aired. Things happened like that, but we never let it slip completely. And so that means that, starting with Survivor Guatemala and all the way up through David versus Goliath, the current season, that is 27 seasons of Survivor, at a rate of 2 a year. Wow, it seems crazy when you add it up like that, but there you have it. Talking about Survivor, still going. Just like Survivor itself, still going. Outlast. All right. In the meantime, I'll talk to you all tomorrow for 5 more minutes.